Hey everyone. It's a really nice day here in Taipei today, so I thought I would go out to the park with Oma here. And this place is called Da Forest Park, and I think it's really cool because it's actual uncut forest, dead center of Taipei. And I think they did that because they realized, yes, steel and pavement are efficient and more productive, but people don't want that for their way of life. They need something a little less hard. They need something a little more soft. And so I want to talk about that. A lot of people ask me, what's the deal with Softboy Social Club? And they think it's this rejection of toxic masculinity, and it absolutely is. But even beyond that, it's about rejecting this need for aggression and this popular idea of what is hard or strong. So, what is it to be strong? To me, strong isn't about having more power than your adversary or being some solid, immovable force. To me, strength is being able to face truths, both external and within, and allowing yourself to understand them without retreating into this safe space of I'm right and you're wrong. It's about standing up naked and vulnerable and pressing on. And I know being vulnerable sounds like the opposite of being strong to most people, but to me, it's allowing yourself to be in a vulnerable place. And that brings about this opportunity to understand not only yourself, but it allows you to understand others and what they're going through, friend or foe. You might have noticed that I said allow yourself to be vulnerable, not don't be afraid, because you can be afraid. Everyone is and will be again afraid. Fear is not only very real and unavoidable, but it can be a powerful tool. If the first inhabitants of India didn't learn to fear the cobra, there wouldn't be many Indians around today, And that's why allowing yourself to be soft and understanding is so important. It's rejecting your ego. It's choosing to be more dialectic. It's moving beyond reacting to the snake and examining the fear to understand why the snake attacks, which incidentally, it's doing out of fear. I think this fear, or more so this avoidance to fear, is what causes a lot of people to misunderstand and ultimately seek refuge in hate. Right now, anyone watching might be totally agreeing with me and saying something along the lines of, damn right, those reactionaries just hate us out of fear. And that might be true, but the thing is, I'm also talking about ourselves. I'm not making this video for the right. Yes, they definitely do fall into all the trappings that I've mentioned, but it's going to take a lot more than some chubby dude in a park to fix that. Right now, I'm more specifically talking to us on the left. I want us to think more about what we want out of this movement and why. Yeah, we are much more into intersectionality and accepting marginalized or oppressed people, and that's truly awesome. But what about our enemies? How far do we go to understand them? Not just to analyze how they work in the vein of, of Sun Tzu's understand your enemy, understand yourself for tactical purposes, but to allow ourselves to empathize with how they became this way. We have no shortage of talk on our side about putting them against the wall, or these assholes are going to get what they deserve. So what is it that they deserve? To be punished? To be made to suffer like we've suffered? All of those ideas center around one central idea, and that's to get revenge. And revenge is something we should be very cautious about. It can overshadow our goals of building communities and working together. There have been plenty of examples where an oppressed class have finally gained power and through revenge have become the oppressors themselves. And I don't want that to be us. I don't want this to be just another cycle of history, because history is running out if we're not careful. And while I am very interested in removing those in power and dismantling their power structures, I'm worried many of us focus on their punishment. And punishment in nature is rooted in revenge. To say someone should be punished is just saying, I want the satisfaction of their suffering. It's a self-serving act, not an act rooted in the idea of societal benefit. What is beneficial is rehabilitation, or at worst, removal from society. Those who hurt society, even the most greedy and exploitative, can be given dignity and every opportunity to reform. And that thought might not sit well with a lot of people. And maybe it seems unfair to some. But what is fair? When we think about it in the terms of punishment, I suffered, so you must suffer? That sounds a lot like an eye for an eye to me. The only societal benefit of imprisonment is to remove harmful actors from the field, which I do believe in. But we can do that without entering a mindset of revenge. Even if we were to, say, give them super comfortable lives, assuming this didn't take resources from someone else, the only reason to object to that idea is that you want them to suffer. And I'm not interested in making anyone suffer, even those that have done horrible things. I am interested in what can be done to ensure it doesn't happen again, or more so, why did it happen in the first place, and ensuring that it doesn't happen again. Sure, some may never reform, and those may have to be kept out of society at large and from any more opportunities to hurt other people. But for me, when an injustice is committed, I usually meet it with sadness to the situation and concern. This need to get back at these assholes, or they have to pay because that is what's right, is poisonous. It's the reason why I don't support things like the death penalty, because they don't really uphold the values we're supposed to be fighting for. The death penalty, and honestly most semblance of any prison system the way it is right now, serves only as a way to extract revenge. This is aside from the current methods of profiting and suppression. But even with those, are these the kinds of methods that are useful in an egalitarian society? The only sort of benefit I see is closure to the victims of the loved ones. But is that real closure, or is it just masking satisfaction of revenge as justice? And by the way, that doesn't mean I'm against guillotine memes. They're funny and to the point. Thought Slime would call them sticky, and we need to be making more ideas that are quick and sticky. So, do I not get angry? Of course I do. I get angry all the time. Everyone does, and that's okay. But we can take that anger and focus it into productive things, like joining militant unions or other organizations, vocalizing injustices in general, fighting for a better world. I want to be really clear here. I am not saying violence isn't necessary. I think the Antifa super soldiers out there are doing amazing work. And anger can be a powerful tool in the right situations. But the anger has to be used as fuel for resistance to oppression, for a demand for change. You can identify your anger, and you can take note of whether it's with an intention to help, or is it just hurting those you've decided have wronged you? So I'm a teacher, and whenever students do something problematic, or a kid tries to tattle on another student or something like that, I always ask, are you helping, or are you only hurting? If your goal was to cause physical or emotional harm, then you are the aggressor. If you are causing some sort of harm to someone, but it wasn't wanted, it was a necessity to help protect someone else from what they were doing, then yeah, that was an act of assistance, not just violence. The important thing is to not get into a state of using the idea of justice as power. We can separate our anger and our actions. If my students say or do something that causes an issue, yeah, I'm frustrated. I'm annoyed. I'm pulling my hair out. See how that happened? But I also know that it's in no way their fault for acting on their current understanding of the world. And it doesn't matter, because I can still hold them accountable and I can try to fix the problem with them. Any corrective measurements I make are made for helping, not punishment or a sense of getting revenge. In most societies, getting revenge on a 10-year-old is frowned upon. If Oma here did something wrong, she ran away, or heavens forbid, she bit somebody, I would have to take necessary actions, scolding her or whatever would be needed. But it's from a place of wanting to help others, not from getting revenge. If your car won't start, you don't demand justice against the car for making you late. No, you recognize what the problem is, you take it to a mechanic and you get it fixed. So, is this cognitive dissonance? No, I don't think so. Having anger and frustration and reflecting on those emotions in order to decide whether acting on them is helping or hurting someone is dialectical. It's taking it as it is and basing your decisions off of what's best. You can have emotions and recognize that they're valid, but you can also recognize what they are and decide if an action on them would be beneficial to anyone, or is it just for your own satisfaction. What I should not do is act on them simply because I want to, because I gave myself permission because I'm right. I'm not interested in being right. I'm not interested in who is right. I'm interested in progress, in what helps bring about a better life for everyone. And there's this heavy influence we place on blame or who's at fault. And if you believe that everything is the product of either nature or nurture, then no one's at fault. And this gets into what is free will, which I actually think is a misleading term, and I'll do a video on that later, but not right now. Regardless, fault is a term that implies that there is nothing to blame but that individual, and it's never that simple. Most of us are taught our whole lives that it's normal to compete against each other, and if we fight harder than everyone else, we get to be rich. Wealthy capitalists are indoctrinated even more so. Would Donald Trump be Donald Trump if he was raised in a poor hippie household or something? Or even if you think, yeah, he would have. Maybe he was just born bad. Then it's still not his fault. He still had no control over it. That doesn't mean we can't hold them accountable. It might not be a Nazi's fault that they're a Nazi. More often than not, they grow up in an environment that teaches them that they are the superior race. And without anything to counteract this, it's difficult to think otherwise. So what else would they grow up to believe other than what their entire concept of right and wrong have been since birth? And yeah, there's a cute kid running after a pigeon out here. And yeah, some of us, myself included, were able to break free, but maybe we had the right influences to pull us out that others didn't. Regardless, searching for fault leads to focusing on the individual rather than finding solutions to the systems and circumstances that caused it. Now, does that mean I don't believe in stopping them violently if necessary? No, I don't believe that. I don't have a problem with people doing what's necessary to protect others. I'm not telling you to go out and commit acts of violence. That would be illegal. But I'd say the act of punching Nazis or milkshaking bad actors isn't an act of revenge. I can't speak for the actual motivations of every individual doing the punching and shaking, but I doubt they're that shaken up about it. But their acts are in an effort to push back against people actively wishing harm on marginalized people. They're helping before they're hurting. So yeah, I'm okay with punching Nazis. And I want murdering cops and sexual predators to be held accountable and to be removed from opportunities to do more danger. But that's because they're hurting, not helping. And by removing them, it benefits society. And yeah, I felt a little dopamine rush when David Koch died. And that was mostly out of relief that he can't hurt anyone else. And because I'm human, that's okay to have those emotions. But what's important is that we try to act on what actually helps people, not just our own satisfaction. So, why is this important? Because intention makes a big difference. It sets a precedence over what is acceptable. If we have an intention of working for a better world outside of our own gratification, then it's possible to make it happen. But if we're simply acting out of a kind of self-serving justice, we approach this idea of an inflexible Kantian idea of what, moral superiority. That you have wronged me and therefore you should be wronged as well. And some could say that punishment dissuades future offenders, but honestly, we can see in our current state that organizing society based on threat of violence hasn't worked out that well. Even those defending capitalism, the normies and reactionaries, the reason why they reject any different approach as nonsense isn't so much because they fear violence against them, though to be sure, daily, unaware, they are experiencing violence against them. But they uphold it as common sense because they've been through constant mental conditioning that it's natural to fight against one another, to look out for number one, and that justice equals retribution. So what can we do? How can we have compassion for our enemy while still standing strong against them? First of all, be vulnerable. And when I say be vulnerable, I mean be vulnerable to yourself. Allow yourself to recognize your fears and anger and take note of them and what's causing them. And it's easy to say, well, systematic oppression, of course, but dig further down than that. Dig to what it is exactly at the root of yours and others' needs that makes this a problem. And that'll give you a better understanding for solutions and make a core plan for attack. There's something called nonviolent communication, which in a nutshell means communicating not just with others, but to yourself with an intent of understanding. Being analytical to find the root of a conflict without inflaming it further. There's a great book by the man who actually coined the term, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. A link will be in the description if you want to check that out. Pay special attention to the chapter on anger. And I know this can start to sound a little self-helpy, and personally I have a lot of issues with the self-help industry, but I feel like this is more about a blanket tool to actually help people understand each other. But one particular concept that I find helpful is communicating to yourself purposely with the words "I feel" to help you understand a specific situation you're facing. And the tricky part here is to actually observe your emotions but not make an evaluation. For this, I think it's best to stick to adjectives. I feel afraid, I feel exhausted, I feel angry. I feel my boss abuses me isn't as useful as I feel powerless. And once you've started to get a handle on that, you can dive into that to find the catalyst of what caused it, which may be your boss. I feel powerless because I have no say at my workplace and how they treat people. And from there, you can start to make concrete plans to correct them. Maybe through talking to coworkers about starting a union or planning a walkout. Maybe it's starting community meetups. It helps you to understand the root cause to make a root plan. But by not focusing on how much you hate your boss, you remove their control over the decisions you make as you plan your attack. On a more broad scale, I think using the Socratic method is also super useful. If you don't know, the Socratic method is just asking questions instead of making accusations. Ask, why is it that Bill Gates pretends his philanthropy is going to save the world? Or Elon Musk? Is it because he's a narcissist? Okay. What led him to become that way? And maybe you'll find multiple reasons and you can drill down in all of those. And eventually you're pretty much always going to come down to a core of a societal or systematic structure. And that's much more useful and worthy of a target. Again, I really, really want to stress that I'm not saying violence and anger aren't useful. I am saying that anger needs to be directed towards something that is productive, not just punitive and self-gratifying. We do need to say that we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. But keep your aim true. Don't get caught up in vendetta and revenge that can derail the cause and possibly even make us the oppressors someday. Don't fight for a world where you get to be on top. Fight for a world where there is no top. Fight for a world where retribution holds no appeal, where no one cares about who's at fault. That's a world where we could get a whole hell of a lot done. That's a softer world. Yeah? Yeah, you don't live in that world? All right, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you found something useful in this. If you didn't, leave a comment down below telling me that I'm a wuss soft boy and my enemies will destroy me, something cool like that. I promise you, you'll be the coolest person in the world if you do that. No one will think you're weird. Also, if you feel you gained something by watching this video, you can support me at patreon.com/softboysocialclub. Right now we have one full-time patron, EB. You are awesome. Thank you so much. Your support really makes these videos possible, and I hope you're getting something out of them. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and give this a share if you can too. It really does make a difference. It helps get the message out to everyone, and it makes a difference on the algorithm for me. Thanks for hanging out with me, folks. I'll see you next time. Oh, look at the turtles. Oh my, you're scaring away the turtles. Can you see the turtles? Oh my God, there's so many turtles. 你好. That guy is actually like super ripped. So these are really cool. These are like water pressure activated bicycles that just use the water from this lake already. And they make waterfalls or squirt out things or make like these cups move. And you can scan this code and compete against your friends and things like that. And that's a good compete. All right, we're gonna try and see if we can get one of these to move for us. Yeah, get some water going. All right, okay. Oh, we got a little bit. I don't know if you guys can see that. Oh, it makes a sound. Whew. Okay, I'm tired. Are you just loving life right now? Are you just enjoying it outside? Yeah. Sweet thing.